Mid-September is the height of hurricane season, and with Louisiana always vulnerable to a direct hit, the LSU Disaster Fraud Call Center is on the lookout for scammers.
It's a very effective operation right now. The operations here on the ground at the call center are run to perfection.
U.S. Attorney Brandon Freeman serves as the executive director of the National Center for Disaster Fraud on LSU's campus. The call center was established after the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Katrina in 2005. He says one of the biggest duties of the call center is to detect fraudulent complaints from hurricane victims seeking federal assistance in the wake of a disaster.
If you've got an offender who's operating in maybe 2 or 3 parishes here in Louisiana, and then a couple months later he travels to Houston and he's operating in Houston, we may never know that unless those initial calls come through the center.
Freeman says the call center began receiving complaints days before Hurricane Florence made landfall last weekend, wreaking havoc across the Carolinas. If the center receives a complaint, it will review the call for deconfliction and refer it to the appropriate law enforcement agency. Call center manager Connor Sullivan says he's hired about 70 student call operators to manage complaints throughout the school week.
Just make sure we're manned here, and to have enough CCOs who are ready to take those calls of suspected fraud, so making sure everybody's properly trained.
Sullivan, who's worked at the call center since 2012, says he's seen a wide range of complaints over the years.
Depending on the hurricane, it does get pretty busy where, unfortunately, we get back-to-back calls of suspected fraud.
To date, the center has received more than 85,000 fraudulent complaints. Freeman says the best way to handle the sheer number of hoaxes is to have his students fully trained.
The most important thing for the center is to have those operators here 24 hours a day and 7 days a week prepared to take those calls. Because as you know, as soon as a disaster strikes, the fraud follows.